The quiet rhythm of Elijah Thorne's life, a discipline built on 2 decades of karate mastery, is violently shattered one late night when the 6'4" martial artist witnesses a beautiful blonde, Sarah Vance, under attack by 3 vicious men. His instantaneous, decisive intervention saves her, but it catapults them both from the anonymity of the city streets into the crosshairs of the powerful and brutal Sorrentino Mafia family. As the 2 strangers flee the immediate danger, their bond deepens into an unexpected, passionate love, compelling them to cooperate with the police and risk everything to bring down the ruthless crime syndicate, promising a future that can only be secured by winning the fight of their lives. If you liked the video and have subscribed to my channel, let's move on to our story. Enjoy watching. Elijah Thorne moved through the city streets with the quiet confidence of a predator. Not that he was one, not in the predatory sense, but his movements were economical, his senses alert, a product of 2 decades honing his body and mind. At 25, Elijah stood at an imposing 6 feet 4 inches, his frame lean and powerful, sculpted by countless hours of karate. Tonight, the cool night air bit at his exposed skin, a welcome sting that sharpened his awareness. The late hour meant fewer souls on the pavement, and the rhythmic tap of his expensive sneakers against the concrete was the loudest sound for blocks. He'd just finished a grueling training session at his dojo, pushing past his limits as always, and the residual adrenaline hummed pleasantly beneath his skin. He was cutting through a less trafficked alley, a shortcut he often took when the silence shattered. A sharp cry, distinctly feminine, sliced through the urban hum. Elijah froze, every fiber of his being instantly on high alert. It wasn't a casual yelp, it was laced with genuine fear, a raw plea for help that resonated deep within him. Without conscious thought, his pace quickened, turning into a silent, ground-eating sprint. He rounded a bend in the alley, his heart pounding a percussive rhythm against his ribs, only to be met with a tableau that twisted his gut. Under the harsh glow of a flickering street lamp, a scene of raw aggression unfolded. A woman, her blonde hair a bright halo even in the dim light, was struggling against the grip of 3 men. Her distress was palpable. She was young, perhaps Elijah's age, and her expensive dress was rumpled, her face pale with terror. One man had her pinned against a brick wall, his hand clamped over her mouth, muffling her desperate protests. The other 2 stood guard, their expressions menacing, their shadows stretching long and distorted in the eerie light. A cold, hard knot formed in Elijah's stomach. He didn't hesitate. Training kicked in, the years of discipline and instinct converging into a singular, focused intent. He was a protector, a guardian, and these men were violating everything he stood for. He wouldn't stand by. "Hey!" His voice, deep and resonant, cut through the night, a sudden, unexpected challenge. The 3 men spun around, startled. Their eyes, hard and calculating, fixed on Elijah. For a fleeting moment, surprise registered on their faces, quickly replaced by a predatory sneer. They clearly hadn't anticipated an interruption. The man holding the woman released her, shoving her roughly aside, his focus now entirely on Elijah. She stumbled, falling to her knees, coughing, her eyes wide with fear as she looked from her assailants to her unexpected rescuer. "Mind your own business, buddy," one of the men growled, stepping forward. He was stocky, with a thick neck and a face etched with a history of bad decisions. His hands were balled into fists, ready for a fight. The other 2 fanned out, flanking him, their intentions clear. Elijah didn't respond with words. He dropped into a low, fluid stance, his weight perfectly balanced, every muscle coiled and ready. This wasn't a street brawl. This was a confrontation that demanded precision and speed. He assessed them in a blink. 3 opponents, all appearing strong but lacking the refined discipline he possessed. He would need to be quick, decisive, and efficient. The stocky man lunged first, a wild, uncontrolled swing aimed at Elijah's head. Elijah moved with the grace of a dancer, a slight shift of his weight, and the fist whistled harmlessly past his ear. In the same motion, his hand shot out, not in a punch, but a lightning-fast block that redirected the man's arm, exposing his side. A rapid jab to the solar plexus followed, precise and powerful. The stocky man gasped, doubling over, the air driven from his lungs. He crumpled to the ground, wheezing, effectively out of the fight. The other 2 reacted with a mixture of anger and alarm. One, taller and leaner, charged with a clumsy kick. Elijah deftly sidestepped, letting the leg pass him by, and then with a sharp outward block, he twisted the man's ankle. A sickening pop echoed in the alley, followed by a scream of pain as the man collapsed, clutching his injured limb. Only one remained, clearly the leader, judging by his slightly more composed demeanor, though his eyes now held a glint of genuine fear. He was slighter than the others but moved with a surprising quickness, pulling a switchblade from his pocket. The glint of steel was an unwelcome complication, raising the stakes. "You're gonna regret this, pal?" the man hissed, flicking open the blade. Elijah's stance tightened. A blade changed the dynamic, requiring an even higher degree of precision and evasion. He knew the risks. He wouldn't disarm him with brute force, he'd disarm him with technique. The man lunged, slashing wildly. Elijah weaved, his body a blur of motion, avoiding the sharp edge by mere inches. He saw an opening, a slight hesitation in the man's desperate flurry. As the blade arced downwards, Elijah's hand shot out, not at the blade itself but at the wrist. A quick, sharp twist, a precise pressure point application learned over years of training, and the man cried out, his grip loosening. The knife clattered to the ground, skittering across the pavement. Before the man could recover, Elijah delivered a swift, controlled kick to the side of his knee, non-lethal but effective and incapacitating. The man buckled, falling to one knee, clutching his leg, his face contorted in pain and rage. The alley fell silent again, save for the ragged breathing of the defeated men and the soft sobs of the woman. Elijah stood, chest heaving slightly, his muscles still vibrating with the afterglow of combat. He quickly scanned the area, ensuring no further threats lurked in the shadows. His eyes then settled on the woman. She was slowly pushing herself up, her blonde hair disheveled, her dress torn at the shoulder. Her eyes, a striking shade of blue, met his. In them he saw a mixture of terror, relief, and a nascent flicker of awe. She was truly beautiful, even in her disarray, with delicate features and a slender frame. Her gaze was intense, analytical, as if trying to reconcile the powerful, silent warrior before her with the ordinary man he'd appeared to be moments before. "Are you all right?" Elijah asked, his voice softer now, the adrenaline-fueled edge replaced by concern. He extended a hand to her, a gesture of quiet reassurance. She hesitated for a moment, then cautiously took it. Her fingers were surprisingly cold, trembling slightly as he helped her to her feet. "Why, yes," she whispered, her voice a little shaky. "I think so. Thank you. Oh my God, thank you." She looked at the three men groaning on the ground, then back at Elijah, a fresh wave of disbelief washing over her face. Who are you?" Elijah gave a small, almost imperceptible shrug. "Elijah. Just someone who was passing by." He glanced at the fallen men. The stocky one was still struggling for breath, the one with the twisted ankle was whimpering, and the knife wielder was clutching his knee, glaring daggers at Elijah. Their anger was palpable, simmering beneath their pain. They were going to kidnap me," she said, a fresh tremor running through her. "I think they were. They kept talking about the boss and sending a message." Elijah's brow furrowed. The boss? A message? This wasn't a random mugging then. This had a more sinister undertone. He knelt quickly, checking the men. None were armed beyond the discarded blade. He pulled out his phone. "We should call the police." "No," she blurted out, her voice sharp with sudden urgency, stopping his hand. Her blue eyes were wide, suddenly laced with a different kind of fear. "Don't. Please. Not yet." Elijah paused, his thumb hovering over the dial button. He looked at her, sensing the genuine panic in her plea. "Why not?" he asked, his tone gentle but firm. She glanced nervously at the still conscious men, then back at Elijah. "Because these aren't just street thugs. They work for someone. Someone very powerful. If the police get involved now without knowing who they're up against, it could make things much, much worse for me. And for you." She bit her lip, her gaze intense. "They're part of the Sorrentino family. The Mafia." Elijah's expression hardened. The Sorrentino family. The name was whispered in hushed tones across the city, a shadow organization with deep roots and a brutal reputation. He had just tangled with the Mafia. The realization hit him with a cold jolt. This was no longer just about intervening in an attack. He had stepped into a viper's nest. He looked at the defeated men, their faces now contorted with a mixture of pain and chilling resolve. They wouldn't forget this. He wouldn't be just passing by to them. He looked back at the woman, her fear now resonating with his own dawning realization. Her beautiful blue eyes held a silent plea, a desperate need for understanding and protection. He had saved her, but in doing so, he had inextricably linked his fate with hers. He had just gotten himself into serious trouble far beyond a simple street fight. But as he looked at her, really looked at her, he knew he couldn't regret it. "Okay," Elijah said slowly, his eyes sweeping over the alley one last time, taking in the bruised and defeated figures of the men, the discarded knife, the broken silence of the night. "No police. For now." He helped her further to her feet, his grip on her hand firm and reassuring. "But we need to get you out of here. And we need to talk." The woman nodded, her grip on his hand tightening. "My name is Sarah," she finally said, her voice still a little breathless, but with a newfound strength. "Sarah Vance." Elijah nodded, acknowledging her. The air crackled with unspoken implications, with danger and uncertainty. The moonlight, which had illuminated her plight, now seemed to cast long, ominous shadows. This wasn't over. This was only the beginning. He had saved a woman, but he had also opened a door to a world he never intended to enter, a world of organized crime and ruthless power. And somehow, in this moment of shared peril, looking into Sarah's eyes, he felt a strange sense of inevitability, as if this chance encounter was destined to change everything. Elijah didn't waste a second arguing. Sarah's panic, though subtle, was too genuine to dismiss. The name Sorrentino hung in the air like a poisonous gas. He knew of them, as did anyone with an ear to the ground in the city. They weren't mere thugs. They were an insidious force. He glanced back one last time at the three groaning men, knowing the sight of their defeated bodies would fuel a fierce desire for retribution. The game had changed from self-defense to survival. "We need to be invisible," Elijah murmured, his voice low and urgent. He kept a firm but gentle grip on Sarah's arm, pulling her out of the alley and into the narrow side streets where the shadows were deeper and the chance of being seen was lower. "My car is parked 5 blocks over near the theater district," Sarah whispered, her breath ragged. She moved with a surprising quickness, despite the emotional shock in her torn dress. "It's a black sedan. They won't be looking for it tonight." "Good," Elijah said, scanning every corner, every parked car, every doorway. His karate training had instilled a profound awareness of his surroundings, but now that awareness was hyper-tuned to paranoia. He wasn't just worried about a quick confrontation. He was worried about a professional tale, a well-placed lookout. The Mafia didn't hire amateurs for kidnappings. The 5 blocks felt like miles. They moved in silence, a study in contrasting silhouettes. Elijah's towering, powerful frame providing a shield, Sarah's smaller, blonde figure pressed close to his side. When they finally reached the opulent theater district, the black sedan was right where she said it would be, an expensive, discreet luxury vehicle that screamed wealth and anonymity. "Get in the passenger seat," Elijah instructed. "Give me the keys." She fumbled in her small evening bag, her hands still shaking. She handed him the fob, her blue eyes locked on his face, searching for reassurance. "You drive." "I don't think I can." Elijah slid into the driver's seat, the leather cool beneath him. He started the engine smoothly, pulling away from the curb without rushing, mimicking the calm of an ordinary late-night driver. He drove erratically but carefully for the first 15 minutes, taking unnecessary turns, watching the rearview and side mirrors like a hawk. When he was finally certain they weren't being followed, he eased his grip on the steering wheel, but not the tension in his shoulders. "Talk to me, Sarah," he commanded, his eyes focused on the empty road ahead. "Who are you and why were the Sorrentinos trying to take you? You said something about a message." Sarah took a deep, shuddering breath, her fingers twisting the fabric of her dress. "My father is Arthur Vance," she began, the name dropping like a stone. "He owns Vance Holdings. Real estate, banking, investments. He's huge in this city. Or he was until 3 months ago." Elijah frowned. He knew the name. Vance Holdings was a behemoth. What happened 3 months ago? He started working with the police. Specifically, the organized crime unit. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. "The Sorrentino family has been trying to strong-arm my father for years, attempting to use his banks for money laundering, forcing him to sell them prime real estate at ridiculous prices. For a long time he just kept them at bay using legal maneuvers. But 3 months ago they threatened me. A cold fury ignited in Elijah's chest. So, he went to the police and offered to become an informant. Yes. He's been gathering evidence, financial records, transaction logs, everything. It's all supposed to come down next week. A massive federal operation to cripple their entire operation. But somehow they found out he was cooperating. Not about the extent of the evidence, just that he flipped. They tried to grab him last night, but he was prepared and managed to go into a prearranged safe house. Tonight they came for me. They know that if they have me, they can force my father to call off the operation or worse, to hand over his evidence. I was supposed to be the message. Elijah processed the information with the cool, analytical side of his mind. This was a high-stakes, dangerous situation. He hadn't just saved a civilian. He had foiled a crucial mafia operation involving the daughter of a key government informant. He was now officially a player, an unknown variable who had hurt their men and interfered with their plans. The Sorrentinos would hunt him relentlessly. "Where are you supposed to go?" he asked. "Does your father have a safe location for you?" "My father's arrangement was supposed to be watertight, but my apartment was compromised," she admitted, rubbing her temples. "I was on my way to a temporary spot, a small loft he owns in the Heights, but clearly they were waiting. The men in the alley, they must have followed me from the moment I left my building." "The Heights is too risky now," Elijah concluded immediately. "If they knew about your apartment, they probably know about the loft or will figure it out quickly. They'll be working their networks now, looking for this car, looking for a blonde woman who's gone missing. They'll be looking for me too." He glanced at her, taking in her bruised beauty, the strength beneath her fear. He needed to make a decision, a fast and smart one. He couldn't drop her off at a random hotel, exposing them both. And calling the police was still too risky. If the Mafia had a leak, revealing their location to the wrong person could be a death sentence. "I have a place," Elijah said finally, a deep breath escaping his lips. "It's small, off the grid, and completely unconnected to me publicly. I've only ever used it as a safe space for focused training and quiet thought. No one knows about it. Not even my closest friends." Sarah looked at him, her beautiful eyes wide, vulnerability warring with desperation. "Elijah, you've already saved my life. You don't have to risk everything else for me." "I do now," he countered, meeting her gaze firmly for a fraction of a second before focusing on the road again. "I put 3 of their men in the hospital, or at least in serious pain. They will not forget that or the man who did it. Whether you go with me or not, I'm already marked. If they track me down and I'm alone, they'll simply disappear me. If they track us both down, well, we'll have to deal with it together." The silence stretched for a long moment, filled only by the purr of the sedan's engine. Sarah nodded slowly, a profound sense of trust, or perhaps simply resignation to fate, settling over her features. "Then take me there, Elijah. And tell me what we do next." He nodded in response, a sense of grave purpose settling over him. He accelerated, leaving the main thoroughfares behind, heading toward the forgotten edges of the city. He was a karate instructor, a man of discipline and peace, but fate had just thrown him into a war. He would have to adapt. The first step was finding a safe harbor. The second step would be contacting her father and the police on their own terms. But first they needed to survive the night. He drove on, the weight of their predicament, and the undeniable attraction he felt for the woman beside him, a heavy, complicated burden. He was certain of one thing: his life was no longer his own. Elijah's safe house was less a dwelling and more a secret bunker. It was located on the frayed edges of the city's industrial zone, tucked away in the back of a defunct warehousing complex. The entrance was cleverly disguised as a non-functional electrical panel on the side of a grimy, windowless building. He parked Sarah's luxury sedan 3 blocks away, under a dense, untrimmed oak tree that obscured it from the streetlights. They walked the rest of the distance in the deep shadows, the air heavy with the metallic scent of rust and distant diesel fuel. With a practiced 3-step sequence of keycard, code, and concealed pressure plate, Elijah opened the hidden door. It was heavy, soundproof steel that swung inward with a low hydraulic sigh. He ushered Sarah inside quickly, the door thudding shut behind them with a definitive, secure finality that felt both comforting and claustrophobic. The space was Spartan but meticulously maintained. The main area was a large, open studio with polished concrete floors, dominated by a large padded training mat and an impressive array of martial arts equipment. A small, functional kitchenette lined one wall, and a raised platform held a simple bed with crisp, clean linens. The air was cool and still, circulating quietly through a powerful filtration system. It was the antithesis of Sarah's glamorous life, yet it felt utterly safe. "This is it," Elijah said, flipping a few hidden switches to bring the light level up. The place glowed with a soft, indirect warmth. "We're underground, structurally reinforced and soundproofed. No windows. The air intake is almost impossible to detect. Even if they trace the car, they won't find us here." Sarah let out a slow, tremulous breath, the tension that had been coiling in her shoulders finally beginning to unwind. She sank onto the edge of the training mat, running her fingers over the smooth, firm surface. She still looked shaken, her beautiful dress a tattered relic of the night she'd expected. "It's incredible, Elijah," she managed, looking around with a mix of awe and disbelief. "Like something out of a spy movie. You're more than just a karate instructor, aren't you?" He started the kettle, moving with the same efficient economy he had displayed in the alley. "I teach karate. That's my life," he confirmed, but there was an unspoken qualification in his tone. "I've just learned to be prepared for contingencies. The world is a lot safer if you know how to disappear when you need to." He offered her a cup of water and she accepted gratefully. The initial adrenaline was wearing off, replaced by the profound intimacy of their shared danger. They were two strangers, utterly dependent on one another, confined to a single room with a life-or-death decision hanging over them. "We need to contact your father," Elijah stated, sitting opposite her on the mat, his long legs crossed. His expression was serious, focused. "We have a brief window before they realize their men failed and escalate the search. We need to tell him you're safe and we need to coordinate with the organized crime unit." "It's risky," Sarah cautioned, gripping the water glass tightly. "If they have a leak, and they must, calling out could lead them right to us. My father gave me an emergency contact number, but it's a specific, encrypted line only to be used if I was in their custody. It's too sensitive to use now." "We can't wait," Elijah countered, his voice firm. "We need to go on the offensive. You're the key. If you remain missing, your father will panic and they might force the police to delay the raid. If they know you're safe but they don't know where, it maintains the pressure and allows the raid to proceed as planned. It gives us leverage." He rose and went to a small, secure wall safe disguised behind a rack of Bakken wooden swords. He pulled out a satellite phone, an older, bulky model. "This operates on its own dedicated network. It's for extreme emergencies only. We use it once. We make the contact, transmit only the essentials, and then we destroy the SIM card. No tracing, no metadata." Sarah watched him, fascinated by his composure and his preparedness. He wasn't just physically strong. He was intelligent, strategic, and calm under pressure. He wasn't a civilian anymore. He was a resourceful ally. "Okay," she agreed, her voice clearer now, the fear receding, replaced by resolve. "My father's name for the OCU contact is Agent Miles. I'll only give him 2 pieces of information, my safe status and the code word we agreed on. The deposit is secured. That tells him I'm safe and that I'm with someone he doesn't know, but that I trust." Elijah nodded approvingly. "Perfect. I'll make the call. You stand by." The call was a tense, silent exercise in nerve. Elijah spoke only the minimum, his voice low and devoid of inflection. He identified himself only as the person with Sarah Vance. The voice on the other end, Agent Miles, was guarded, skeptical, but Sarah's whispered confirmation and the code phrase cut through the suspicion. "We need 24 hours, Agent Miles said, his voice crackling with static and urgency. "The full operation is set for Tuesday morning. If Mr. Vance knows his daughter is secured, he can keep his cover and the clock runs. Do not move. Do not contact anyone else. We will reach out to you." Elijah hung up, removing the SIM card and placing it on a small metal tray. He produced a lighter and melted the tiny chip into useless slag. He looked at Sarah, the faint smell of burnt plastic filling the air. 24 hours, Elijah announced. "We're locked down. They know you're safe and they know you're with someone capable. That means the heat on us just doubled, and it's now directed at me, the unknown factor." Sarah stood up, walking closer to him. In the small room, the proximity was electric. She could see the faint sheen of sweat on his skin, the powerful muscles of his arms beneath his t-shirt. He was intense, focused on survival, yet there was a deep well of kindness in his eyes. "Elijah," she said softly, her voice carrying a profound sincerity. "I owe you everything. You've risked your life, your freedom, your peace, for a complete stranger." He met her gaze, and for the first time since he'd heard her cry in the alley, his eyes softened, the fierce warrior receding slightly to reveal the man beneath. "You weren't a stranger, Sarah. You were someone in need." The air between them thickened, no longer just with danger, but with a palpable, nascent connection. She reached out tentatively and touched his cheek, her fingers cool against his jawline. "They would have killed me," she whispered. "Or worse. And you faced them without a weapon, without hesitation." Elijah gently took her hand and lowered it. "You need to rest. You've been through an ordeal. I'll take the first watch." He gestured to the simple bed. "It's clean. Get some sleep." Sarah nodded, accepting the command. She was exhausted, emotionally drained. She went to the bed, pulling the blanket up to her chin. As she lay there, watching Elijah, who had already pulled a simple chair to the secure door, his large frame radiating stillness and watchfulness, she realized the depth of his courage. He was a sentinel, a silent, powerful guardian. Elijah, acutely aware of her gaze, sat patiently. He could hear the faint sound of her breathing settling into a rhythm. He allowed himself to relax his shoulders just slightly, but his mind remained in motion, calculating the odds, planning their next move. He knew he had just committed himself to a fight with the Sorrentino family, and there was no walking away. But as he listened to Sarah's quiet, steady presence behind him, he knew he didn't want to. He had found something in the alley tonight that he never knew he was looking for. A profound purpose and perhaps a connection that transcended the chaos. Their 24-hour countdown had begun. They were isolated, in danger, and irrevocably linked. The next 24 hours in Elijah's safe house passed in a strange, suspended reality, divorced from the city above. Time blurred, marked only by the low hum of the ventilation system and the shifting shadows cast by the indirect lights. Outside, the Sorrentino family was no doubt tearing the city apart looking for Sarah, and for the man who had dared to cross them. Inside, a different kind of tension simmered, one of forced intimacy and shared peril that began to forge an unbreakable bond between Elijah and Sarah. Sarah woke a few hours after sunrise, though without windows the concept was abstract. She found Elijah performing a series of slow, fluid karate kata on the training mat, his powerful body moving with a silent, hypnotic grace. He was wearing simple gray sweatpants, his torso bare, revealing the sculpted lines of muscle that spoke of years of relentless dedication. She watched him for a long moment, captivated not just by his physical prowess, but by the intense concentration etched on his face. He was a man utterly at peace within his own strength. When he finished, he turned, his gaze immediately finding hers. There was no surprise in his eyes, only a quiet acknowledgement. "Sleep well." "Better than I deserve," she admitted, pushing herself up. Her dress was still rumpled, a stark contrast to his fresh, clean appearance. "Do you have anything else I can wear? Or at least something to wash this with?" Elijah walked to a small built-in closet. "I keep a few changes of clothes here. Nothing fashionable, I'm afraid, but they're clean. And there's a small washroom with a shower." He pulled out a simple oversized t-shirt and a pair of drawstring athletic shorts. "These might be big, but they'll be comfortable." He then retrieved a compact, travel-sized washing machine. "The water for the shower is limited, but enough for a quick wash. And this can handle your dress." As Sarah took the clothes, their fingers brushed, sending a jolt of awareness through her. It wasn't sexual, not yet, but a recognition of their unique situation, a spark of unspoken connection. She nodded, grateful. "Thank you, Elijah. For everything." While Sarah showered and washed her dress, Elijah prepared a simple meal, eggs, toast, and strong coffee, meticulously made from the sparse provisions he kept stocked. They ate in companionable silence, the sounds of cutlery on plates amplified in the quiet space. "Tell me about yourself, Elijah," Sarah finally said, breaking the quiet. She was now dressed in his clothes, which hung loosely on her slender frame but felt infinitely more comfortable. Her blonde hair, still damp, framed a face that was beginning to regain some of its natural color. You're clearly not just an ordinary karate instructor. Elijah leaned back, considering her. My parents were academics, but I found my calling in martial arts early. Discipline, focus, self-mastery, it resonated with me. I trained with a master who believed in ancient ways, not just fighting but preparedness for all eventualities. He taught me to be self-sufficient, to observe, to adapt. This place, he gestured around the safe house, is a direct result of his teachings. A place of refuge, a place to think, to train. So, you've never had to disappear before? She asked, a small smile playing on her lips. He returned the smile, a rare flash of warmth that lit up his eyes. Not quite like this. Not with a beautiful blonde woman whose father is taking down the Mafia. Sarah laughed, a genuine, joyful sound that brought an unexpected lightness to the sterile environment. It was the first time she'd truly relaxed since the attack. And you, Sarah Vance, Elijah continued, daughter of Arthur Vance. What about your life beyond being a target of organized crime? It's mostly business, she sighed, a shadow passing over her face. My father is a demanding man. He wants me to follow in his footsteps, to take over Vance Holdings. I've been groomed for it my whole life. Attended the best schools, studied finance, economics, but honestly it's not what I truly want. And what do you truly want? He asked, his voice gentle. She looked away for a moment, then back at him, her blue eyes filled with a vulnerability she hadn't shown before. To design. Fashion. I love the creativity, the fabrics, the lines. But it's never been practical enough for my father. He sees it as a frivolous hobby. Elijah listened, truly listened, a rare quality she found refreshing. Most people in her circle either flattered her or dismissed her. Elijah just absorbed her words, devoid of judgment. It's not frivolous if it brings you joy, he said simply. Passion is a powerful thing. The hours crawled by. They talked, sharing snippets of their lives, their hopes, their fears. Elijah described the intricate details of karate, the philosophy behind each move, the mental fortitude it demanded. Sarah, in turn, spoke of her dreams of creating, of the vibrant world of fashion she secretly yearned for. They discovered surprising commonalities, a dedication to excellence, an appreciation for detail, a deep-seated integrity. The more they talked, the more Elijah found himself drawn to her. Beyond her striking beauty, there was a resilience, a quick wit, and a genuine kindness that shone through her fear. He admired her courage, the way she refused to break despite the immense pressure. He found himself protecting her not just out of duty, but out of a growing, undeniable affection. As night approached, the silence grew heavier. The 24-hour window was closing. Elijah moved to the small communication console, checking the encrypted line. He could feel Sarah's anxious gaze on him. Suddenly, a series of rapid, insistent beeps filled the room. The dedicated line. Elijah grabbed the satellite phone, his expression instantly serious. This is it. He activated the secure connection. Elijah, this is Agent Miles. The voice on the other end was strained, urgent. The operation has been moved up. The Sorrentinos know Mr. Vance is cooperating. They're making moves. We need Sarah. Can you get her to the designated rendezvous point? Central Market, the old clock tower entrance. 1 hour. Be discreet. There are eyes everywhere. 1 hour, Elijah confirmed, his mind already calculating routes, risks. We'll be there. He hung up, his gaze meeting Sarah's. They know, she whispered, her face pale. They know enough, Elijah corrected, moving swiftly to the concealed door. The raid is happening tonight. This is it, Sarah. We go in, we link up with the police, and your father brings them down. He pulled out 2 simple dark hoodies from the closet. Wear this. Keep your head down. We move fast and we move silently. He armed himself with a small, discreet tactical baton he kept hidden, a lightweight but formidable tool. His hands, though, remained his primary weapons. As he opened the heavy door, a gust of cool, stale air rushed in, carrying the distant, muffled sounds of the city. The sterile safety of the bunker was behind them. They were stepping back into the danger, into the heart of the storm. Sarah looked at him, her eyes shining with a mixture of fear and absolute trust. I'm ready, she said, her voice firm, resolute. Elijah gave her a small, reassuring nod, his hand resting briefly on the small of her back as they stepped out into the night. He knew the risks. He knew what kind of retribution the Sorrentinos would seek. But as he looked at Sarah, a fierce resolve solidified within him. He wouldn't let them touch her. And in that moment he realized this wasn't just about protecting an informant's daughter. It was about protecting her. Elijah and Sarah moved through the late-night city like phantoms. The industrial zone had given way to grittier urban blocks, then to the wide, shadowed avenues leading toward the central market. The air was colder now, pressing down on the sense of urgency that crackled between them. Sarah, encased in the large, dark hoodie, stayed close to Elijah, using his broad frame as both a shield and a compass. His proximity was a concrete anchor in the swirling anxiety. "We stick to the shadows, Sarah," Elijah instructed, his voice a low, steady rumble. "Keep your eyes up and trust my lead. If I move fast, you move faster." He had chosen a circuitous route, avoiding main roads and areas with heavy security cameras. He relied on his trained intuition, sensing pockets of silence and sudden shifts in the atmosphere that suggested danger. The Sorrentino family wouldn't be subtle. They'd flood the designated area with men hoping to grab Sarah and eliminate the unknown factor, Elijah, before the police operation could launch. As they neared the central market, the danger became palpable. The area was eerily quiet for a bustling city center, a sign of its being watched. Elijah spotted the first warning sign, a black sedan parked discreetly down a side street, its interior too dark, its presence too passive. A surveillance vehicle. "Change of plan," Elijah muttered, pulling Sarah abruptly into the narrow entrance of an abandoned laundry shop. "They're here already. Too many eyes on the clock tower." Agent Miles must have been compromised, or they predicted the obvious rendezvous point. Sarah's breath hitched, but she didn't panic. She looked up at him, her blue eyes reflecting the streetlights. "What now?" "We circle wide. We get into the market but through the back. It's chaotic inside, better for evasion." He led her through a labyrinth of garbage bins and service entrances, navigating the stench and grime with practiced ease. They found a low-loading dock door, secured by a heavy chain. Elijah produced a small, specialized lock-breaking tool he'd brought from the safe house. A moment of focused silence, a slight metallic click, and the chain fell away. They slipped inside, emerging into the vast, cavernous interior of the old market. It was a maze of stalls half-covered for the night, smelling of stale spices, fresh produce, and decay. The perfect backdrop for a chase. Suddenly, a voice sliced through the silence of the market hall. "Freeze, Vance." And the big man. "Stop right there." 6 figures materialized, emerging from behind covered stalls, all moving with a synchronized aggression that confirmed they were organized. They weren't the clumsy street thugs from the alley. These men were lean, armed, and cold. They wore dark clothing and had their hands tucked into their jackets, suggesting concealed weapons. The ambush was complete. "Run, Sarah. Go to the central aisle. Find the exit near the fish stalls." Elijah yelled, pushing her hard, forcing her to bolt. She hesitated for a split second, her face a mask of terror and protest, but the immediate threat propelled her forward. As she ran, Elijah dropped into his stance, a silent, powerful anchor. He was severely outnumbered and they were armed, but he bought Sarah time by drawing all attention to himself. "You should have stayed out of it, big guy," the apparent leader snarled, pulling a short-barreled shotgun from under his coat, its menacing shape unmistakable even in the dim light. "The boss wants you broken." Elijah knew he couldn't take a gunshot and survive, nor could he allow them to target Sarah. He had to be a distraction and a whirlwind of motion. He didn't wait. He moved toward the nearest attacker with explosive speed. The man with the shotgun was too slow to track his movement. Elijah's hand shot out, not to block or strike, but to grab the man's forearm, pulling the gun's barrel harmlessly to the side as he delivered a blindingly fast reverse elbow strike to the man's temple. The attacker crumpled instantly. The rest of the mob reacted with brutal efficiency, fanning out to surround him. 2 of them lunged simultaneously, one with a knife, the other attempting a heavy tackle. Elijah pivoted, using the momentum of the tackle against the knife wielder. With a sweeping foot maneuver, he tripped the tackler, sending him crashing into the man with the knife. Both went down in a tangle of limbs and dropped steel. That left 3, and they were smarter, keeping their distance, attempting to herd him towards the center where the light was better. Elijah saw Sarah, paused for a moment in the distant shadows, watching in horrified fascination. "You had to finish this." He focused on the largest remaining man, who was reaching for a weapon in his belt. Elijah ran toward him, not in a straight line, but a zigzagging charge, forcing the man to hesitate. When they were a few feet apart, Elijah leaped, delivering a powerful flying side kick that caught the man square in the chest. The force sent the man flying backwards, crashing into a stack of empty wooden crates with a splintering roar that echoed through the market. Now only two remained, visibly shaken by the speed and brutality of Elijah's counterattack. They were wary, their eyes darting between Elijah and the shadows where Sarah was hiding. "Call it off. Now!" A loud, authoritative voice boomed from the market entrance. Elijah froze. He recognized the voice, Agent Miles. Uniformed officers, tactical vests gleaming, swarmed the entrance, weapons drawn, shining powerful flashlights into the hall. The two remaining Mafia members looked at their downed colleagues, looked at the overwhelming police presence, and made a split-second decision. They dropped their weapons and raised their hands, their faces tight with fury and frustration. Elijah slowly lowered his fists, breathing heavily, his entire body thrumming with residual adrenaline. He was unharmed, but the effort of facing 6 armed men had been monumental. He was immediately surrounded by police officers. "Agent Miles," Elijah said, his voice deep and measured, "I had her running towards the fish stall's exit. She's safe." Agent Miles, a burly, unflappable man with a grim expression, nodded curtly to his team. "Secure the targets, get an ambulance for the injured, and find Miss Vance." He then turned his full attention to Elijah, his eyes assessing the black man who had just dismantled 6 armed mobsters. "You're the unknown factor," Miles stated, a mix of skepticism and grudging respect in his voice. "You single-handedly took out a high-level strike team. You just saved this entire operation. Now where is Mr. Vance?" "He's in a safe house," Sarah's voice rang out, clear and strong as she emerged from the shadows, running toward Elijah. She didn't run to the police or to Agent Miles. She ran straight into Elijah's arms. He caught her, his powerful embrace firm and protective. She clung to him, burying her face in his chest, the fear finally giving way to profound relief. "I knew they were compromised," Sarah whispered fiercely into his shirt. "I knew we couldn't trust them until you proved you could handle this." Elijah realized with a sudden clarity, she hadn't run to the exit. She had waited and watched, testing the police's response, betting her life on him. "It's over, Sarah," Elijah murmured, holding her tightly. "For tonight it's over." But Agent Miles was already looking past them, his face grim. "No, son. This is the fire break. The main event starts now. We're moving on the Sorrentino compound. You just bought us the critical 10 minutes we needed." He pointed to a large, unmarked black van that had just pulled up to the loading dock. "You two are coming with me. You're the star witnesses. And Mr. Thorne, you're now under police protection, whether you want it or not. The Sorrentinos know your face now. Your life just changed forever." The black van became their temporary cage, a bubble of police authority rushing through the night. Sarah was pressed close to Elijah, her body still trembling with the aftershocks of the ambush. They sat in the back, opposite Agent Miles, who was barking orders into a secure radio, his face illuminated by the glow of tactical screens displaying city maps and live feeds. "You took out 6 of them," Miles said, cutting the radio, his eyes fixing on Elijah with a hard intensity. "They weren't top tier, but they weren't rookies. Where did you learn that?" Elijah, still breathing steadily, met his gaze. "Karate. 20 years of discipline. It's what I do." Miles grunted, a sound of skeptical approval. "Well, Mr. Thorne, your discipline just saved a federal operation. Arthur Vance is secured, but without Sarah's confirmation, we couldn't risk the full assault. Now we can. We're calling it Operation Blackout. We hit the main compound in 20 minutes. Every piece of evidence hinges on Mr. Vance's cooperation and the financial records he provided." "And if he's wrong?" Sarah asked, her voice raspy but steady. She was holding Elijah's hand tightly, a silent plea for reassurance. "If he's wrong, we lose. The Sorrentinos walk free and we have a very public disaster on our hands," Miles admitted grimly. "That's why you two are going to an undisclosed staging area. You are the safety net. You're the key witnesses who link the attempted kidnapping directly to the family. If anything happens to your father's evidence, you are the prosecution." The mention of their shared future as key witnesses, The certainty of the trouble they were now in only deepened the sense of destiny between Elijah and Sarah. They were not just surviving, they were fighting a common enemy shoulder to shoulder. "What if we could offer more than just witness testimony?" Elijah asked, leaning forward. The men in the alley mentioned a message, a means to force Mr. Vance to call off the operation. Sarah indicated that the Sorrentinos were trying to use his banks for money laundering. "The evidence has to be focused on the money." Sarah nodded, her eyes flashing with renewed determination. "The key to the whole Vance Holdings operation, the legitimate and the incriminating records, is a secure off-site server. It's not at the office or the safe house. My father entrusted me with the encryption key 3 months ago, just in case he was compromised." Miles's eyes widened, a flicker of genuine surprise breaking through his composure. "An encryption key? To what?" "To the Shadow Ledger," Sarah stated, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "It's a complete parallel financial record. It details every illegal transaction the Sorrentino family tried to push through Vance banks, every real estate deal they strong-armed, every bribe, every payoff. The legitimate records are good, but the Shadow Ledger is the smoking gun." Elijah squeezed her hand, a surge of admiration rushing through him. She had held this critical piece of information until she was certain she could trust the people around her, an act of strategic genius. "Where is this server?" Miles demanded, pulling out a notepad. "It's not a physical server," Sarah clarified. "It's a digital vault, mirrored across 3 cloud storage services, heavily encrypted. The location doesn't matter. But the key is physically contained in a microSD card, hidden in the lining of my favorite clutch purse. The one I was carrying tonight." A wave of dread washed over Elijah. "The purse, back at the alley?" Sarah's face fell. "No. I dropped it when they first grabbed me outside my apartment building. I had time to run 2 blocks before they caught me again in the alley. It must be there, in front of 442 Grove Street." The van screeched to a halt at the staging area, a heavily guarded, vacant municipal building. Miles looked from Sarah to Elijah, his face a roadmap of urgency and frustration. "The compound raid starts in 15 minutes. We can't divert a full team for a purse. If the Sorrentinos find that before the raid, they'll know exactly how much trouble they're in and they'll scatter, taking the key with them." "I'll go," Elijah said instantly, pushing himself to his feet. "I know the streets, I know how to move unseen, and I know how to handle myself. I can be there and back before your team hits the compound." "Absolutely not." Miles slammed his hand on the console. "You're a civilian. You're under my jurisdiction now. And the streets are crawling with their lookouts." "Then I'll go with him," Sarah insisted, standing up, her eyes blazing. "It's my purse. I know exactly where I dropped it and he needs me to point it out. This key is the difference between convictions and a slap on the wrist. If you can't spare a team, then you have to let the people who saved your operation finish the job." Elijah looked at Sarah, recognizing the resolute fire in her eyes. The risk was enormous, but she was right. This was their chance to not just survive but to end the threat for good. Miles hesitated, looking from the confident, powerful black man to the determined, intelligent blonde woman. He knew time was running out. He reached for a drawer, pulling out a small, specialized radio and a compact, high-powered flashlight. 10 minutes, Mr. Thorne. No more. If you're not back, we proceed without you. We'll cover your escape route from the air, but you're on your own on the ground. You have to be ghosts." He shoved the equipment into Elijah's hands. 9 minutes and 40 seconds, Elijah corrected, a fierce light in his eyes. He grasped Sarah's hand, and this time the touch was not just comfort, it was a promise. "Let's go." They slipped out of the van and into the bustling staging area, then disappeared out the back door, heading back into the city's concrete maze. The danger was not just outside now, but an internal pressure, the clock ticking down to the final high-stakes confrontation. The fate of the entire Sorrentino family, and their own future, rested on one small hidden memory card. They were sprinting back into the heart of the risk, side by side, their unspoken affection the only light in the engulfing darkness. The drive back to Grove Street was a terrifying blur. Elijah drove Sarah's sedan, pushing it hard through the quiet, affluent neighborhood where she had first been targeted. The only sounds were the whir of the engine, the frantic directions Sarah whispered, and the static-laced updates from Agent Miles on the high-tech police radio. The clock was a cruel master, ticking down toward the main raid, giving them mere minutes to retrieve the Shadow Ledger's encryption key. "It was right here," Sarah gasped, pointing to the curb outside an ornate brownstone. "I dropped it just as they rounded the corner. It's a small beaded blue clutch. It might have rolled under that bush." Elijah slammed on the brakes, pulling the car abruptly to the curb. "Stay in the car. Keep the engine running. If anything moves, drive." "No," Sarah countered, already unbuckling her seatbelt. "I'm coming with you. It's too dark and I know exactly where I dropped it." He didn't argue. There wasn't time. They moved as a single, urgent unit, sprinting across the manicured lawn. Elijah scanned the street, his senses on overload, the darkness feeling thick and treacherous. The silence of the neighborhood was oppressive, a quiet that felt like holding one's breath before a storm. They dropped to their knees by a low rhododendron bush. Elijah used the compact, high-powered flashlight Miles had given him, its beam cutting a sharp swathe through the gloom. Sarah plunged her hand under the dense foliage. "There. I feel it," she whispered, her voice tight with adrenaline. She pulled out a small, exquisite blue clutch, beaded and glittering even under the meager light. It was the only splash of color in the monochrome scene of danger. Elijah grabbed it, his powerful fingers quickly finding the inner lining. He expertly tore a small section with a single, controlled movement, revealing the tiny glint of a microSD card. He didn't hesitate. He inserted the card into the slot of Miles's small, dedicated radio device. "Miles, we have the key," Elijah transmitted, his voice low but clear. "Transmitting now. Target, Shadow Ledger. Secure the evidence." "Roger that, Thorne." Miles's voice crackled back, laced with elation. "Our forensic team is standing by. We need immediate access. Can you confirm the files are there?" Sarah immediately took the device, her fingers flying across the small screen. She quickly navigated the encrypted structure, punching in a series of codes only her father, and she, would know. Within seconds, a message flashed on the device. "Transmission initiated. Full data integrity confirmed." "Miles, the data is uploading to your secure server," Sarah announced triumphantly. "The Shadow Ledger is being delivered. It's all there. Names, dates, accounts, everything." "You did it, Vance." Miles roared over the line, the tension replaced by an audible surge of excitement. "The raid is a geo. We have irrefutable proof of RICO violations, money laundering, and conspiracy. Get back here now. The neighborhood is about to get loud." Elijah grabbed Sarah's hand, pulling her back toward the car. They didn't need to be told twice. Sirens were already beginning to pierce the silence, distant at first, then growing rapidly louder, the sound of justice finally descending. They sped away from Grove Street, the police lights already starting to bloom on the horizon behind them. They reached the staging area just as the sky was beginning to lighten, a new dawn breaking over the city. Agent Miles met them outside the black van, his face no longer grim, but alight with hard-won satisfaction. "You two are impossible," he said, shaking his head, a genuine smile splitting his face. "The full operation is in motion. Arthur Vance's records were the map, but the Shadow Ledger is the treasure. We've confirmed the download, it's everything we needed and more. The Sorrentino family is finished. Total blackout." Sarah, exhausted but exhilarated, leaned into Elijah, tears finally tracing paths through the grime on her cheeks. "It's over, Elijah. It's finally over." Elijah held her close, feeling the tension drain out of her body and finally out of his own. He was no longer running, no longer fighting. The storm had passed. He was just a man holding the woman he had risked everything for. Over the next few hours in a secure police debriefing room, the full extent of their success became clear. News channels began to buzz with reports of massive arrests, seizure of assets, and the crippling blow dealt to the city's largest organized crime syndicate. Arthur Vance was released from his safe house and upon seeing his daughter, embraced her with a gratitude that was overwhelming, thanking Elijah profusely. In a quiet moment amidst the chaos of official proceedings, Elijah and Sarah found themselves alone. Sarah looked at him, her beautiful eyes shining with a depth of feeling that was unmistakable. "You saved me, Elijah. You saved my father and you saved the city," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "You said you just happened to be passing by, but I know better. You stepped into a fire for me." Elijah gently reached up and brushed a stray strand of blonde hair from her face, I've never regretted a single step I took toward you, Sarah. Not the fight, not the risk, not the trouble. It was all worth it. Their eyes locked, and in that small, secure room, away from the sirens and the danger, the electricity that had sparked between them in the alley ignited into a powerful, quiet certainty. Their hands found each other, their shared peril having forged a connection stronger than either of them could have anticipated. The future was safe and it was clear. They belonged together. The fight was over and the rest of their lives was about to begin. The dust settled slowly over the city, not with the silence of defeat, but with the quiet clarity of victory. The comprehensive takedown of the Sorrentino family was a front-page sensation. Thanks to Arthur Vance's courage and the irrefutable evidence from the Shadow Ledger, the arrests were swift and the indictments airtight. Elijah Thorne and Sarah Vance were hailed quietly as heroes by the authorities. Their testimony, combined with the detailed digital records, sealed the fate of the crime syndicate. In the weeks that followed, their lives underwent a profound transformation. Sarah officially stepped back from the demands of Vance Holdings. Her brush with death and her partnership with Elijah had crystallized her true ambition. She established a small, exclusive design studio, finally pursuing her passion for fashion. Her father, humbled by the ordeal and overflowing with gratitude for Elijah, didn't object. He saw the resilience and intelligence his daughter possessed, qualities Elijah had helped reveal. Elijah, meanwhile, received an unexpected consequence of his heroism. His identity as the vigilante martial artist, who single-handedly defeated the Mafia strike team, became an open secret in the city's underbelly. The Sorrentinos were gone, but the notoriety remained. He used the attention to his advantage, however, expanding his dojo. Students flocked to him, drawn by his skill, his unwavering calm, and the legend that now surrounded him. He taught not just karate but the discipline, the self-reliance, and the quiet preparedness that had saved their lives. But the most significant change was the evolution of their relationship. The high-stress, confined environment of the safe house, followed by the electrifying teamwork during the final mission, had stripped away the superficiality of typical courtship. They knew each other's deepest fears and highest strengths. Elijah admired Sarah's fierce intelligence and her passion for creation, while Sarah was captivated by Elijah's gentle power and the profound integrity that defined him. They spent their days together, a perfect balance of their two worlds. Sarah would often visit the dojo, finding a quiet peace watching him move, a reminder of the night he'd first moved to save her. Elijah would visit her studio, fascinated by the way her hands brought life to fabric, recognizing the same dedication to perfection he applied to his kata. Their backgrounds, so disparate on the surface, wealthy heiress and martial arts master, were united by a shared dedication to excellence and a bond forged in fire. One evening, nearly a year after the alley confrontation, Elijah brought Sarah back to the safe house. It had been cleaned and slightly refitted, but it retained the raw, intimate atmosphere where their relationship had first taken root. He led her to the center of the training mat. "This is where it all started," Elijah said, his deep voice carrying a familiar, grounding warmth. "In the chaos, I found the most important part of my life." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Sarah's breath hitched, her blue eyes glistening as she looked from the box to his face, radiant under the soft light. Elijah opened the box. Inside, resting on the velvet, wasn't a traditional diamond, but a simple, beautifully crafted platinum band etched with a delicate, continuous flowing pattern, a subtle nod to the movement of his karate. "Sarah Vance," he began, dropping down onto one knee, not in a grand gesture of supplication, but in the low, powerful stance of respect and commitment he used before his master. "You saved me from a life I didn't know was incomplete. You showed me that courage isn't just about fighting, but about choosing your path, choosing passion, and choosing love. I promise you protection, devotion, and a lifetime of standing beside you, no matter what shadows may cross our path. Will you marry me and build a new dawn with me?" Tears streamed down Sarah's cheeks, but her smile was blinding. "Yes, Elijah. 1,000 times yes. Our life began the moment you stepped into that alley for me." The wedding was a small, beautiful affair, a blend of their worlds. It was held outdoors, beneath a canopy of old oak trees, attended by Arthur Vance, who had grown fond of his formidable son-in-law and Elijah's students. Sarah wore a dress of her own design, elegant and flowing. Elijah wore a tailored suit that didn't conceal the power and grace of his physique. They settled into a life that was both serene and dynamic. Elijah continued to teach, shaping young minds and bodies. Sarah's studio thrived, her designs known for their strong lines and effortless elegance. They bought a beautiful home with a large backyard where Elijah could train under the sun, and Sarah could sketch under the shade. Years passed, bringing them shared joys and challenges. The memory of the Sorrentino threat faded into a powerful, defining chapter of their history, a thrilling beginning that had tested their limits and proven their love. They were the perfect partnership, the protector and the creative, the strength and the spirit. Elijah Thorne, the man who had faced down the Mafia to save a woman, found that in saving her, he had truly saved himself. They had built their happy life together, a testament to the extraordinary power of courage, choice, and love. Dear viewer, if you've watched up to this point, thank you for your support. I have a small request. If you enjoy my stories, you can subscribe to the channel, and don't hesitate to share your thoughts about the stories in the comments. Enjoy watching. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video.